how did you become involved in or find yourself having an expertise in public records requests?
Uh, Back in 2007, I made a public records request. I have been reading in the newspaper every year in Florida, and now it's a national observation, what they call Sunshine Week, and it's scheduled to coordinate loosely with the birthday of James Madison, who was widely regarded as the father of open government in the United States. And every year, or most years, various members of the Florida Newspaper Editors Association, newspapers around the state, would write editorials or articles about open government, the importance of open government. And one of the things that they very often would do in coordination with the Florida First Amendment Foundation, which I'm a member of, they would send out reporters incognito. So, for example, they might send a reporter from Lakeland down to Sarasota to make public records requests, or they might send a reporter from Miami to Tampa to make public records requests. And then they would write stories about how they were treated. Did they get access to the records the way they were supposed to? And I was intrigued by that. I had read those articles over a period of years, and just out of sheer curiosity, I decided to go down to Bartow, which is our county seat, and I visited, I don't know, 4 or 5 different agencies and made public records requests. I knew nothing about public records law. It was frightening how little I knew. Really, all I knew was what little I had gleaned from reading newspaper articles. And the agencies that I went to, they all gave me the records, and it seemed to be sort of a non-event until I went to the Polk County School Board. And when I went to the Polk County School Board, the first thing they did was demanded that I had to sign in, and they demanded that I had to disclose other personal information. They said that I had to make my public records request in writing. They wanted to know why I wanted the records. And I didn't know very much, but I knew they weren't supposed to do that. And so I ended up leaving empty-handed, and I went foolishly, straight from their offices to the state attorney's office, thinking that the state attorney would do something about it. And the state attorney's office, they were very nice, but didn't seem really very interested. But they did make a phone call to the school board and basically told them they had to give me the records, which they did. And so I was curious because behind the front desk in the lobby is a seal that says knowledge is power, which sort of seems to go hand in hand with the concept of transparency in government and access to public records. So I was curious as to why they had done what they did as far as making these unlawful demands that I disclose personal information and make a request in writing, etc. So I scheduled a meeting with at the time, a woman by the name of Gail McKenzie, who was the superintendent of Polk County School District. She's not here anymore. And a couple of weeks later, I met with her, and in that meeting, she had 2 attorneys in attendance, both of whom I know socially. And she proceeded to tell me that my experience was, and I'm using her word, non-normative. And I was trying to understand, and I couldn't come up with any other options here. Either it was deliberate, their violation of the Public Records Act, or it was done out of ignorance, which I found both those to be troubling. They're a government entity and they know the law, or if they don't know the law, they're an educational institution and they assert that knowledge is power. I just wanted to know why it went that way. So she has just assured me that I got them on a bad day. It's not the way they normally do business, and so we left it at that. And that was in 2000. That was February or March of 2007. So I waited a year, and in I guess it was about March of 2008, I tried to think of the most offensive, invasive thing that I could ask for that I was pretty confident they wouldn't want to let me have. So I went back down there and made a public records request for the health insurance enrollment information for all of their employees and all of their dependents, which at the time was non-exempt and subject to disclosure. And they told me they wouldn't let me have the records, and they sent me an email, and this email had all these statutory citations, and I didn't really understand what those were. But I took it upon myself to read those statutory citations, and not one of them had anything to do with public records, much less any kind of an exemption. And so they wouldn't let me have the records. So at the time, I had the resources economically to do it. So I hired an attorney and sued him, and I probably racked up about $50,000 in legal fees, and wrote tens of thousands of dollars of checks to get access to those records. And when we finally went to court, the judge asked them for their defense, and their attorney sort of meekly said, "Your Honor, we don't have a defense." And I think this is an exact quote. "Your Honor, we don't have a defense. We just didn't want to give him the records." I was blown away by that. It was shocking to me. And it's the only time I've ever heard a judge use profanity on the record. And his response was, "Why the hell are we here?" That was an eye-opening experience for me, to realize that there are people in power who will willfully, deliberately break the law just because they want to. They don't have any good reason for doing it. They just don't want to. And as it turns out, I got this information as a result of a whole series of public records requests that I made to the Polk County School District. The reason they didn't want me to have it is because they were selling it. They were selling the same information to credit card companies, to financial planning companies, to insurance companies. In fact, one of the school board members who had opposed me getting those records had bought the same exact information and used it in his political campaign to become a school board member. I ended up getting my legal fees back, and frankly, it was a little bit like playing blackjack. I decided to double down, let's go again. So I made the same exact request to every school district in the state, and most of them gave me the middle finger. They just wouldn't let me have the records. So I sued 10 more, and I won all of those. And then I made a public records request. This is probably one of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever had as an advocate. I made a public records request to every school district for any records they had referring to my public records request. And lo and behold, what I got was, I think it was Madison County, who I did not sue and who had given me the records in the first place. What I got from them were thousands of communications between school board attorneys. There was an organization, never even heard of it, the Florida Association of School Board Attorneys. And they had this listserv where they kept talking to each other. And there were school board attorneys who were saying, "Yeah, we have the records, but we're not going to give them to them." And they were engaged in a criminal conspiracy. You had attorneys saying, "Well, we're going to tell them that we don't have the records." Another attorney would say, "Well, we're going to tell them that the records only exist in hard copies, so it'll cost them a lot of money to get those copies." And then there were other attorneys who were saying, "Well, we're going to tell them that they're just inaccessible." And to their credit, there were some school board attorneys who came right out and said, "What you all are doing is illegal. That you may not like it, but he's entitled to the records, and you got to give them up." And those email threads led to the criminal prosecution and conviction of the Polk County School Board's general counsel for criminal violation of the Public Records Act. That was a really eye-opening experience for me, to realize that there were public officials, people who were being paid to follow the law and to do what's in the best interest of their constituents, who were very willing to break the law. And they were willing to do it in a concerted effort. It was deliberate. It wasn't incidental. It wasn't, golly gee, we don't know what we're doing. These are guys who went to law school, who passed the Florida bar, who apparently are supposed to know the law, but just decided they're going to break it. And so that's sort of where I got started. And from there, I started making other requests for other things and realized the power of public records access. I filed with legal counsel, I don't know how many, a few dozen lawsuits, and won all of them. And I was very, very fortunate. The law firm that I first hired, Thompson LaCicero, who is still my principal legal representation, are, in my opinion, the preeminent open government litigators in the state of Florida. In fact, Red Thomas, who is their senior partner, is the gentleman who's litigated many of the landmark public records cases in Florida that are regularly used as citations by both sides. And he was very patient, very kind, and it eventually suggested that I might find it educational to file a lawsuit pro se, which I did. And I have since then both with legal counsel and as a pro se litigant, filed hundreds of public records lawsuits. Recently, just a few days ago, I was doing some research that required me to go to the Polk County Clerk of Courts web portal, and I think I saw that I had filed just in Polk County, I think 80 or 90 public records lawsuits. And of course, I filed public records lawsuits all over the state. I've lost count of exactly how many there have been. My last calculation, 99.6% of them had either been adjudicated in my favor by the court or had been settled in favor of access, meaning that the records were ultimately produced and the offending agency agreed to take some sort of remedial action to correct the problem. So I guess my knowledge about open government litigation is sort of the school of hard knocks. Figured it out. By the way, I do. Not only do I do my own public records litigation, although I don't right now. I don't think. I think I have 30, a little over 30 pending public records cases that are still ongoing. Only 3 of those are with legal representation. But I also, in addition to doing public records litigation, I also get contacted from time to time by state agencies asking me to consult with them, with their legal counsel, on either how to improve public records access or strategies and how to defend against public records lawsuits. I did one not long ago with the Department of Economic Opportunity. They had a fee hearing, and I was helping them prepare for a fee hearing. And I think they were successful in getting their fees reduced by about $50,000. Although they wouldn't have paid a penny if they just obeyed the law in the first place.